Right then, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Extinguished Motorsports. I'm joining you a little bit early today because we have a sprint race first of all, and getting into it very early on. One-shot qualifying first of all, then we go into a sprint race, which is of course 50% race distance. Then it's another one-shot qualifying, and then we have the 50% race. So it should take around the same amount of time today. But let me just get the game sound on because I cannot hear it at all. Perfect, right. Reaper in the chat, good to see you, mate. It's been a long time. But we're here for one-shot qualifying, of course. This is one lap around for the drivers to set a time for qualifying. This is going to determine the sprint order. And, of course, sprint races around here are always good. Not always lots of overtaking, but definitely great for the high-speed moments. Is Qatar, and we come here for the fourth round of the season. Only 10 drivers join us, so quite low number tonight, unfortunately, but hopefully that can be bumped up. Currently then in qualifying, Pepe's looking quickest in the Aston Martin out of everybody here so far. Dom Pedrito lines up P2. Wolfie Plays joins us in the chat as well. But Reaper and Wolfie, it's been a long time since I've seen you both in here together. It's good to see you all. Welcome in for Extinguished Motorsports. If you're just joining us, bit of a different one tonight. It is qualifying, one-shot qualifying first, then we have sprint race, another one-shot, and then the Grand Prix. Pepe's on pole position then for this race coming up, as Logan on the chat. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys. Here we go then, everybody. Qualifying results for one shot. It is the Pepe's and Dom Pedrito, two Polish drivers, and the Aston Martin and Williams take the front row of the grid. Passy lines up P3, then joined by Deckers 4, Davey 5, P6 straight on racing with a decent qualifying from him, joined by Saint Power in 7, 8 is Traps, 9 Owen, and 10 for Percival in the Mercedes. Percival and Owen both disqualified from qualifying, but sent to the back of the grid going into the sprint race this evening. But the sprint is 50% distance, meaning we should get, I think, around 12 to 14 laps for the sprint race. And then, of course, the 50% race will be around 20, 28, I think, or maybe in the 30s around here in Qatar. But a long time since I've seen it and commentated it, so we're going to have to see how many laps we're going to get. I cannot believe we've got Wolfie and Reaper both in the chat. It's been a long time. Good to see you all. Reaper's just going crazy. Anyway, the sprint race coming up next. We are 4 rounds in then to Extinguished Motorsports. The previous round was a pretty good one. Of course, we had the interviews at the end as well, speak to the top 3. And the results from Japan. Traps won out that one then, claiming 50 points. Passy second place in the Alpine. It was Andrew Pittsmith in third with 37 points back that evening. Pepe's 4, Dom Pedrito 5, which is a bit of a turn then. Pepe's and Dom Pedrito 1 and 2 this evening for the qualifying. Traps in the chat as well, welcome in. And Deckers as well. Reaper with some bits, mate. Thank you very much. Been a long time since we've had some bits. Cheers, Reaper. It's good to see you back. Hopefully you've been holding up well. You always disappear. He sends even more. You always disappear for a good few months and then just randomly appear. I don't think anyone's ever beaten your bits, mate. I really don't. Just realised that needs to come up as well, so you can actually see it. There you go, with the bits. Cheers, Reaper. I appreciate it, mate. I really, really do. Even more. Oh my god. He's going mad. Reaper, you're a legend, mate. Thank you very much. Might just get close to Wolfies if you carry on. Oh my god. Charles Leclerc's never going to stop screaming. Dex says he hates Qatar. Well, best of luck to you, mate. We've got a big race on our hands tonight for the round 4 of the season. Reaper's still not stopping with the bits. I appreciate that. Here we go then. The formation lap begins. And we're about to get into the sprint race, ladies and gentlemen. We've just had a short qualifying, a sprint qualifying session where Peppi's and Dom Pedrito take out the front row of the grid then on an absolute roll this evening. Still very early stages, but of course extra points up for grabs tonight with a sprint race, and no mandatory pit stops is the key thing tonight, as Reaper's pits are not stopping Charles Leclerc. I'm going to have to mute it soon. It's going on crazy. Thank you, mate. I really do appreciate it. Good to see you back. Give me 5 minutes. Oh my God. Well, the audio is cutting out a slight bit. Hopefully that doesn't continue. But yes, 10 drivers join us then for this sprint race now. Then we have a short qualifying, sorry, a sprint qualifying, my apologies. We go for a sprint, and then we go for a 50% race, which is going to be quite interesting to see. Percival starting from the back of the grid, traps in 8 then, I believe won the previous round, and quite far out of his usual qualifying position. He has got a bit of work to do today then, with only 10 drivers here. It's not as much as it usually would be. The tyres at the moment then, looking like some drivers have chosen the softs, a few on the mediums, traps on the hards. But I think see how many bits are on. It should be at the top of the Twitch chat, mate. You should be able to scroll across and see the leaderboards and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone's coming close to Wolfie's. It's a hell of a lot of bits. 11,000 sent to the channel, which I don't think's ever going to be beaten by anybody. But the formation lap comes to a close then, and we wait for the final few drivers to line up on the grid. Percival at the very back. A very short grid this evening, but Peppi's to lead them away in the Aston Martin. And with 5 lights ahead of the drivers, we get ready to go racing for the first time of the evening here in Extinguished Motorsports. 5 lights ahead of the drivers, and we get away. It is lights out and away we go in a brilliant start then from the Aston Martin down in towards turn 1. Not a lot of overtaking opportunities around this track, and already Peppi's has got the inside line covered. He leads through turn 1. Dom Pedrito in 2 then, with Passy trying to fight him through now through the first few corners here, but the Alpine cannot get through just here. Hold third place, now into P2 for a brief moment. He finds the outside line. Can the Alpine take this away from the Williams? Side by side, and a great move for Passy now. Moves up a place in the sprint race. 10 laps we have then of racing. This is the first, of course, and no mandatory pit stops so for the guys on the soft compound tyres. 10 laps is a long time to go on them. But, of course, some of the quicker drivers have decided to do that. So we'll find out. We will find out. Reaper says I'll be second by a huge margin in about 5 minutes. Mate, honestly, you don't have to. I love to see it though. Absolutely superb. Thank you very much. Charles needs to shush. I agree. It's going crazy, but you know what? We do appreciate all of the love given to the channel. And Reaper showing that tonight. Really, really nice of him. But a great start for Peppi's, like I mentioned, starting on pole and getting away well through the first lap. Then he leads here in Qatar. It's Peppi's 1. Passy now leads in 2. Dom Pedrito 3. Deckers 4 as Peppi's gets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, which is probably soon to be taken away, potentially. But only 3 drivers then on the soft cities. Peppi, Passy and Davey. Down in towards turn 1 we go. Dom Pedrito trying to take it away now from Passy. Side by side through turn 1, and Passy just about holding it for now. But can Dom Pedrito in the Williams fighting back, get back the place that he lost on lap 1? He still can't do so, and Passy really, you know, manages to keep in front well here. Beautiful racing from him and defending like a lion as Passy still holding 2. Pepe's now gaining a gap in front of 2.2 seconds nearly, and absolutely flying ahead of the pack. Definitely his sprint race to win today. If he can keep at this pace, then 8 remaining laps after this one. He's got to do all those laps on the soft compound tyres. Remember, nobody's going to be making a pit stop today, you know, unless there's significant wing damage from a driver. But we haven't seen any collisions or anything like that, which is going to cause bad damage for the drivers. So at the moment he's looking okay. I don't think we're going to get anything severe unless I've jinxed it. We'll find out. But 10 drivers here then, trapped at the back of the grid right now. He's got Owen in his sights. Owen usually does pretty well then here in Extinguished Motorsports. Sometimes will retire on the off chance, but usually is quite high up there then, and never too far away from the podium. He is in P9 at the moment though, and quite far back, as he got Saint Power in front of him and locked him in his sights. He goes up the inside line, then an easy pass for Owen now ahead of Saint Power, who's also been overtaken by the Red Bull of Traps, race winner from last week. Now he gets into P9 then, second to last still though, and quite far down the grid at the moment. Lap 3 now, Dom Pedrito second place and holding it well from Passy. He did get back through. Passy lost his place that he gained on lap 1, and now has a bit of a job on his hands if he wants to try and retake it. Dom Pedrito has found another gear and is absolutely flying ahead of the drivers. Lap 3 of 10, and the laps ticking by very quickly. They do, especially in the sprint races, and not very often we get sprint races, but it always is good to have them every now and then throughout the course of a season. And of course, these short races without a pit stop always do bring great battles and overtaking. The issue is with this track, you don't really have many overtaking opportunities. It is pretty much foot flat to the floor for nearly all of it. I think you take the lap at full throttle for about 80% of it, which is a huge percentage in Formula One for, you know, full throttle statistics. But here's lap 4 of 10, and we cross the line with the drivers. Currently watching along at the back of the grid, it is Stradle Racing now then, who has got loads of drivers swarming him up the inside. Traps tries it on him. Can he get through? The Red Bull doing what he can. They go 2 by 2 through the first few corners, and there from Traps. Now he's already on the backside of the Mercedes of Percival, who can see him in his mirrors. Is he going to let him through? He does let him through for a moment there. He just squeezes into the gap, and Traps now gets another place. P7 for the Red Bull. Into P7 he goes. Percival loses out, and now fighting at the back with Stray Dog. Traps is set free to fight in front, and the next opponent to overtake, Owen, in the McLaren, who is, like I mentioned, usually really far up there. P6 at the moment for him though, so a little bit out of position, but we'll see how we can do in due course. Still a little while to go of this sprint race, 6 laps remaining, but we are 1 lap away from that half race distance. And it's looking like it's going to be Pepe's day at the moment, as he is soon to begin the half race distance now for the sprint race. Quick reminder, we do have a sprint, sprint quali, one-shot quali coming up after this, and then of course a 50% race. After that race, we do have post-race interviews as well for the top 3 drivers. But here is the battle for 3rd place, and Deckers has had a really good drive so far. Not too sure where he started. We can see that now. He did start in P4, so Deckers gaining 1 place since lap 1. Now halfway through this sprint race, and he's on the podium at the moment. Of course, the podiums don't mean as much during the sprint races. It's not as hard to get. You know, there's not a lot to work for compared to a Grand Prix where there's lots of strategy involved and things like that. You don't really get that in the sprint race, but still, a podium is a podium, and Deckers will be very happy with that if he can take it. Of course, he wants to really take it in the Grand Prix, and if he's showing this kind of pace today with only 10 drivers here, he's absolutely got a chance of getting that podium again. He's been let down the past couple of weeks on podiums, and a lot of it not really due to him and not his fault, unfortunately. And there was a chance for him to join the interview room last week, he declined the offer and said he's going to try and earn it himself. And that is what he's doing today then in P3. Of course, this isn't for the interview, but this is all playing a part in how he's going to race for the main Grand Prix coming up after this. The sixth lap begins and Pepe's out in front with nobody around him, and then in a world of his own, 4.1 seconds adrift from everybody else, and he's absolutely flying. Him and Dom Pedrito still in the same place as where they started, holding it well. The only other driver to be in the same place as where they begun is Davey, and conveniently, them three drivers, the only ones that started on the soft compound tyres. So is that saying something? I don't know, but it's clearly worked out for them. And Pepe's with only 4 laps remaining of this sprint to go ahead and take the first win of the night. Who will take the second is the question. Some battles going on here then. Owen gets overtaken, I believe. What's going on here? Traps and Passy. Passy takes it wide round the final few corners here in Qatar then. As lap 7 begins, they head round the final corner. I believe he's just lost the place there. Passy's really fell down the order. He was up in second place fighting, potentially for a lead on the first few laps. Now he's been sent nearly to the back of the grid then, down in P7 at the moment. Here comes the Red Bull of Traps then, taking the car at the inside line. He's through to P5 now, ahead of Owen. As the back end slides out, the Ferrari's gone around. Davies' race, his sprint race, comes to a quick close. Is he now back at the grid, hitting the barrier, and that'll be wing damage for the Ferrari. And it's all gone downhill for him. The man that has started on the soft compound tyres and should hold the advantage. Unfortunately, that is going to screw him up. And now sent to the back of the grid is Davey. Maybe he can do better in the Grand Prix later on. But the gap between Pepe's and Dom Pedrito as well, coming down slightly. It's still 3.9, was 4.1, I believe, earlier on. And now back to 4.1, actually, so never mind. A bit of a fluke there, but the gaps do fluctuate up and down quite a lot. He's crossing the line and Davey picks up a 3-second time penalty, really seeming to be struggling this evening now after that crash into the barriers, and that'll be pretty much the end of his sprint. His Grand Prix still to come though, and has got another chance in that at least, so lucky it's happened on a sprint weekend. But the Red Bull's fighting, and Traps now gets into P3. He won the previous round in Japan, and here in this sprint he's fighting into the podium places now. He started in P8, that is actually, quite far down the order. Now onto the podium and ahead of his teammate Deckers, who has got Owen behind him now, putting the pressure on in the final few laps of this sprint. And time penalties as well, not too many across the grid today. 3 for Traps, Perceivable, St. Power and Davey. So 4 drivers with penalties. That means another 6 without, which is quite nice. And of course, penalties not something the drivers want to be getting that much at all, because if you're fighting for a position high up, of course, it's going to mean you're probably going to lose out on that position, which has been hard earned. But off wide here for the Alpine of Passy. That's the second time we've seen him do that. He's really far down the pack today as lap 9 of 10 begins. The penultimate lap of the sprint race is here then, and Passy up towards the line now to make an overtake on Owen if he can. But the rear wing opens for the McLaren to help him keep himself in front, but he's getting ever closer to Deckers now. Through goes the McLaren on the Red Bull up the inside. Owen now gets into 4th place, putting Deckers down to 5. He's been fighting for the podium earlier on, now losing places. He's down to 5th. Passy on the backside of him. He's in P6 at the moment. But these three drivers fighting well, and Owen getting the best end of it at the moment into P4. If you can get within 3 seconds of Traps, Owen's on the podium here for the sprint race, because Traps with the 3-second time penalty, and going back to exactly what I was talking about earlier on, penalty is going to cause you to lose your hard-earned place, unfortunately, and that is what's going to happen with Traps here. If Owen can bring that gap down by 0.3 of a second or more, now 0.4, as he is losing the time, now 3.5, the gap is going up, then Traps has really found another gear here. But here we go then. The sprint race has come first. We had a, I can't even remember the word every time, one-shot qualifying earlier on, and that was taken by Peppies, of course, who currently leads this race, this sprint race, and it has been his all night long so far. A really, really good drive from him. St. Power with a 3-second time penalty. But Peppies and Dom Pedrito have stayed consistent, and both started on the front row of the grid, and that is exactly where they end up today. P1 and 2 for them, but are they going to finish in that place? Off the track now for, who's that? St. Power has got a puncture on the front left, and something we see quite a lot here in Qatar. St. Power falls victim to the puncture on the front left side. And the medium there taking so much force and heat as well here in the desert. But it is Peppies then who leads, and soon to round off this sprint race for him this evening. He has driven an absolutely brilliant drive today, and nobody was able to take it away from him. The soft compound tyres raised questions at the start. Would he be able to finish this sprint on them, given they only last a short amount of time? But he's proved all of them people wrong. Peppies over the line. He wins the sprint race this evening here in Extinguished Motorsports. Dom Pedrito crosses the line for P2. And Traps, he will cross the line for third and hold it, because he gained he kept the gap then over the guy behind. Deckers takes 4, and it is a Red Bull 3-4 then. Here in the sprint. Passy finishes in 5. Owen will cross the line in P6. P7 is Stray Dog. 8 Perceivable. 9 Davey. And 10 is St. Power. And that, once St. Power crosses the line, is going to round up your sprint race going into the Grand Prix after this. Well, one-shot quali first, then the Grand Prix, of course, but we've got to decide who's going to be on pole for the main race. And over the line then to round off that sprint race. Now a one-shot qualifying coming your way before a 50% race, which of course is later. Well, that's it. We have one-shot qualifying coming up now. We've already had one of those earlier on before the sprint. And a great drive from everybody there, really. Quite clean racing we've just witnessed. But now going into the real deal. This is the proper qualifying now for the proper race. Half an hour after the whole event has started. We're getting on with it quite well. But to the chat then, whoever's in the chat, give us a race prediction. Who do we think is going to win tonight? It's a good question. Trap says Deckers P1, Owen P2. Pepe's P3. We've got a good race on our hands then for round 4 of Extinguished Motorsports. As we just wait for the drivers to get on with it. I'm not entirely sure what we're doing here. I think we are 5-minute break after quali. We've just been told. Well, here we go then. This is it. Your one-shot qualifying session for the main race. This is where it starts to get a little bit more real for the drivers. 10 of them joining us for this session, and we've just had a great sprint race, of course, with Pepe's and Percival. Pepe's and Dom Pedrito, giving us a good outing up at the front and finishing well, of course. But Pepe's now the man out up there in front in the Aston Martin. He's dominated the event tonight in the sprint and looks to be doing the same in the one-shot session. Setting himself up to do pretty well, of course, going into the Grand Prix. Pepe's giving it a really good go, and he took that pole position in the one-shot qualifying previously. He's looking to do it again then round the final corner. No competition to him in the Aston Martin. Pepe's across the line, and it is going to be pole then once again. 2 times in one night for the Aston Martin as he sets himself up incredibly well for this race now leading. He won the sprint. Can he win the Grand Prix as well, where strategy, pit stops and all of the rest of it is involved? Pepe's on pole then by 2.5 tenths of a second, nearly 3 there to Dom Pedrito. An incredible lap time from him. He starts P2, Traps 3, Deckers 4, Owen 5, Davies 6, Percival P7, Stray Dog 8, 9 Passy, and 10 is Saint Power. That is your order for the Grand Prix, and we'll be getting on with that in 5 minutes time. See you soon. What's your prediction, Jack? Oh, honestly, mate, I think it's too close to call. Passy, of course, was doing good in the sprint, and you know, he kind of bottled it, and then he starts down in P9 today. I think Passy could do a better job, and actually, looking at it, I'm going to say Pepe's 1. I'm going to put Deckers. I'm going to put you in P2, mate, and Dom Pedrito 3. I think that's the prediction for tonight. But this is it then. The formation lap begins for the Grand Prix this evening. This is round 4 of Extinguished Motorsports. And only 10 drivers join us, unfortunately, quite thin on the ground. But Pepe's has given us a great evening so far. And looking at the Drivers' Championship, this is going to do him quite well. He currently lines up P4 in the Drivers' Championship. Passy, at the minute, dominates it. Well, it doesn't really dominate it. There's a point between him and Traps, actually, in 3rd. So it is all up for grabs this evening. And with Andrew Pittsmith not being here, it opens it up for Pepes and Percival as well to gain in the World Championship, as well as Dom Pedrito, who's up in P2. So expect some championship changes coming into this one tonight. Only 1 point between P1 and P2 in the World Championship. That's between Passy and Traps. And then Andrew Pittsmith behind that in 3 on 86. Then 83 for Pepes. Percival's on 72. So everybody within a few points. And that sprint race that's came tonight has definitely helped out a few. And it's really going to bump up the points going into the you know, the next round and the next standings that we get released. But that's the drivers, the constructors standings at the moment. Then Mercedes doing well, up in 1 with 129 points. Only 3 points separate them and Aston Martin in 2, as Aston Martin on 126. Williams take the 3rd spot on 119. Then the big drop of points begins with Alpine on 94 in P4, Red Bulls in P5, 93, 89 for McLaren, then Haas in P7, 8 is Ferrari, 9 Sauber, and 10 is the Racing Bulls at the back of the team standings. But a big race tonight then. A very big race tonight for the 4th round of the season. There's the Red Bull flying into the line. Deckers braking a little bit too late and now gets set back slightly on his grid box, which is going to, unfortunately, mess his start up slightly down in towards turn 1. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. The lights build up to 5 here for the Qatar Grand Prix, round 4 here in Extinguished Motorsports. We've had the sprint. Here comes the Grand Prix. It is Pepe's off the line well then, down in towards turn 1. Is he going to do the same as the sprint race then? He covers up the inside already. Pepe's leads in towards turn 1. A great start from him. Dom Pedrito too. And this time doesn't have someone breathing up the inside of him. Dom Pedrito's free to hold P2 this time around. Now it is the Red Bulls that are fighting with each other on the race start. It's Deckers and Traps in P3 and P4. And actually Traps quite high in the World Championship. He needs these points. They are crucial for him. Only 4 rounds in, but of course really useful for him to get those big points early on as his teammate pulls aside and Deckers then loses 2 places there. Not entirely sure, looks like a wheel disconnection or something as he pulled to the side, let 2 drivers through, and Deckers now down to P5, gives himself even more work to do then in this race with 29 laps ahead of us, and Pepes gets away insanely well. He of course took pole in the sprint, won the sprint, took pole in the race. Can he win this race this evening? Early stages, of course, his teammates all the way down in P9, so hasn't got any help with him. But he's shown us this evening that he doesn't need it at all, hasn't he? And with Dom Pedrito just behind him, you just watch this. Pepes is going to turn the burners on, and the gap is going to build. We shall find out, though. Traps at the moment in the podium places. Deckers then runs in 4. He's just got ahead of Owen now into turn 1 as Mackie joins in the chat. Welcome in, Mackie. Good to see you, mate. And a long train of drivers down in towards turn 1 with an Alpine of Passy going for an overtake here on Percival. He looks up the inside line. Will this be an overtake here? Doing everything in his power, but not enough on those medium tyres. Hasn't got enough grip then to make the overtake, but he does switch around the outside line now. A little bit more speed on the Mercedes. The Passy's now through up into 6th position on the 2nd lap of the Grand Prix. So he's got a little bit of work to do, but of course with the smaller grid today, the work is less and more than, you know, he's more than capable of making it happen. if he wants to do well today. He leads the World Championship, by the way, so this is not an accurate representation of Passy at all. He's normally a bit higher up the grid. P6 is out of position for him. He's a previous world champion in this league as well. But today, she's not going his way that much, is it? But he has just made a place up, so making progress, take that as a positive, and he might just start to be on that upwards trajectory now in this race. But we'll find out in due course. Back to the front, and the gap that I said was going to accumulate is actually not happening anymore, because Dom Pedrito has found a bit of pace. And in the sprint, he wasn't able to do this because of the fighting going on with Passy. But now he is able to keep fairly close to Pepys here, and half a second between them. The rear wing open here for the Williams. Pepys won't get the DRS then. Up the inside line for Dom Pedrito, and for the first time today, he goes for the race lead. Up the inside he goes, but not enough grip or speed there to maintain it, and it's Pepys who just about slips up the inside line. He regains that lead and takes it back, but this track is beautifully crafted, and some moments soon where the Williams might just be able to make a slingshot. Unfortunately, run a bit wide there though in the back end. You know, not doing what he wants it to. Understeering now as he's back on track, but P2 and now 9.5 tenths of a second to Pepys. One small mistake and he will absolutely wipe the floor with you now. It is a second the gap, and Pepys might just run away with this now. Dom Pedrito, of course, is now out of the DRS range, meaning Pepys has got a lot of clean air now and not really having to worry about the guy behind him unless he gets within that 1 second. Then the rear wing will open, then he'll get that extra speed and downforce down the straight, and of course that would bring Dom Pedrito a lot more into play. But lap 3 of 29, and at the moment Pepys the man in front. Don in 2, Traps running in 3 on the podium in the early stages. Deckers then runs in 4. He went down to P5 at the lowest earlier on, and then made the place back on Owen. Now he's got to get back past his teammate if he wants that podium today. Of course, strategy's still going to come into play today, but we'll find out how that goes with it. They don't really want to double stack. Traps into P2 then, ahead of Dom Pedrito. Don now for the first time today gets overtaken. He's now in the final spots on the podium, loses a place from Traps, who won last week. Now Traps is on a roll into P2. Maybe he's got that bit of speed to catch up on Pepys. We'll see. Only 4 laps in of 29 long laps of racing around here in Qatar. Will we get any punctures with drivers leaving it really late to make those pit stops? But it's purple in sector 1 then for the driver, Traps here, who's on a roll and finding a lot of time. Maybe he's got enough pace in him here to catch up with Pepys. The gap has slightly closed, but then it just gains. It depends really. This track is so fast-paced that the time fluctuates a hell of a lot then through the course of a lap. But St. Power still at the back of the grid, and in the sprint then he did unfortunately blow a tyre and had a bit of a puncture on the front left to get him towards the line. A bit of a Lewis Hamilton 2020 Silverstone moment there, but St. Power, of course, wasn't in a winning position, unfortunately. Finished the race in P10 for the sprint, and at the moment looking to finish in the same place in this Grand Prix if it carries on like this, because he's at the back of the grid. He's got straight up racing in front of him. Davies in front of that in P8, then P7 is Perceivable, then Passy in P6, Owen 5, Deckers in 4, still trying to hold on to the dreams of getting a podium today. He's not too far back then from the podium places, you know, with only 0.8 of a second in that, and if he puts his foot down and finds a bit of pace, we're gonna get a move here for Deckers. Straight up with the first penalty of the afternoon then on the 5th lap of the race. 3 seconds go to him, and they're not going to matter too much given that he's at the back of the grid nearly. But here's St. Power with a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings here then. And that's another penalty now for drivers. It is Sweydog and St. Power at the back of the grid, both with 3 seconds to their names. But we're watching the Williams there of Dom Pedrito potentially making an overtake here on Traps to regain that place that was his on the first few laps of the race. The gap is 0.3 of a second, and when he gets the opportunity to open that rear wing down the main straight, of course, only the only one DRS zone here in Qatar, then of course that is going to help him quite a bit getting that rear wing open. But is he going to get it this lap? It's looking like it at the moment. However, the gap is getting larger now, back down to 0.4 of a second now for Dom Pedrito, still trying to keep within the gap of Traps behind. Gaining now, maybe before the DRS detection zone, we're going to see that move take place. Dom Pedrito getting ever closer here to Traps in the Red Bull. Takes a better line through the left-hand side, but Traps pulling ahead slightly now in towards the final corner then to start lap 7 of 29. The DRS will be activated here, but the back end slides out for Dom Pedrito, and he'll lose that advantage he would have had with the DRS down the main straight here. Now has to wait another lap around if he wants to make that place and get back into second place. Traps is holding second really well at the minute. Deckers isn't too far back either in 4, and he's right there ready to make an overtake when his time comes. Lap 7 of 29 then, and a long way to go in this race still at the moment, but Deckers picks up a time penalty, and that is huge then for a driver that wants to be on the podium. A 3-second time penalty with people around him that don't have one at all. That's going to really screw Deckers' race up massively, and don't know if the podium is possible for him today, as he currently sits in P4, 1 place away from it, but with a 3-second penalty, he might as well be down in, P6 at the minute, which is a shame. But Pepe's definitely the best out of the lot at the moment. He took the sprint win, and now he's here for the Grand Prix, looking to do the exact same thing. Still, we haven't had any pit stops just yet. But I believe he's started the hard compound, meaning he'll run these really long. Yeah, he has. So he'll go on these for a good amount of time, maybe half of the race distance before he makes his first pit stop, depending on how many stops he decides to make. If he wants to do a 2-stop, might go a little shorter than that. But we'll see what his strategy is when it comes to make the pit stop. Pepe's 1 then, Traps in 2 with a 1.8 second gap to the Aston Martin. And Traps trying to keep the gap, pretty big between him and Dom Pedrito just behind. Well, Traps with a 3-second time penalty now. Another driver with a penalty, and that is going to be music to Deckers' ears. His teammate with a 3-second time penalty too, and someone that's actually in the podium places. St. Power with another one now, but definitely working in the favour of Deckers here with a time penalty to Traps in P2. This will hopefully help him slightly. Dom Pedrito doesn't have one yet. Potentially he'll pick up one. You never know which way it is going to go. Grand Prix do last a long time, of course, and we are 1 lap away. We are 1 lap away from the sprint distance, of course. 10 laps was the sprint distance. We're doing along 29 in this one. as Deckers with a 3-second time penalty, and that is going to massively screw him over, and dare I say, the end of his podium hopes and dreams. A 6-second time penalty is huge. Perceivable now picks up one as well down in P7. Penalties coming up now, but really not ideal for... Oh, Dom Pedrito now picks up a penalty too. He gets one, and drivers really struggling now around the Qatar track. As of course, because you take the laps so much at full throttle, it's a lot more, of course, the steering gets more sensitive, and it's a lot more harder to keep the car within the white lines consistently lap by lap, and that is why we're starting to see more time penalties as the laps go on. It is 3 for Traps, Dom Pedrito, and Deckers has 6, but still good for Deckers here with a penalty. You know, with drivers around him getting penalties, means his hopes and dreams aren't completely killed off now. Here's Dom Pedrito on Traps then, and for the first time today, will we see him retake that second place? Nearly contact up the inside line there for the Williams as he backs off slightly to make sure there's no huge collisions, and Don has got to wait behind. I think Deckers has gone around potentially, unless he's in the pit lane area. He is in the pit lane down in P8 then. Deckers going on for new tyres, and he's going to go on to the hard compound, so potentially on the mediums at the start. But it's the 11th lap of 29, and Pepe's leads by 2.3 seconds ahead of Traps at the minute. Traps and Dom Pedrito with time penalties. Passy without one. He's on the medium, so he will have to make a pit stop fairly soon, but he's doing well to run them as long as he has done at the moment, and keeping them going as long as possible in the Alpine and the medium compound, pushing the car. Currently P4, but he's got 6.3 seconds to Dom Pedrito in front. That's technically 3 because of his penalty, but of course that only comes into play when the drivers cross the line come race end, so not too important at the moment. Deckers, of course, sent to the back of the grid then after going into the pit lane and getting on the brand new hard compound tyres from being on the mediums earlier on. He made that pit stop, decided to make the change. Now he's on the hards, which is going to run for longer, and you can see how long the drivers are running them. The people that started on the hards are still out there, 11 laps, nearly 12 laps in now, pushing them very, very hard indeed. And, you know, keeping them going as long as they can. But Dom Pedrito is getting up to second place now, fighting with Traps. They are level pegging through the first few corners here, but the inside line's taken by the Williams here, who will have the advantage for a moment. Can Dom Pedrito hold it? Yes, he can. It's second place for him, and regaining the place that he started with in the Grand Prix this evening. Traps now loses out. Has a bit of work to do here if he wants to get it back. Both equal on penalties as well, so definitely fighting for these positions here, and there's no penalties to, you know, mess their own races up.
but barely any yellow flags, no safety cars or virtual safety cars either. It's been a very clean race today, and of course not as many drivers as we usually get, which is gonna mean less conflict, of course. But Trapp's in the pit lane now. Then he is on the hards, and he is the first hard runner to make a pit stop. This is huge then for the race. The Red Bull going in on the hard compound, changing them out now for the mediums. That pretty much confirms he's on a two-stop strategy here then with the medium compound tyres. He goes on to, passes in as well. 12 lap old mediums get changed now to the hards, and he's going to potentially be able to run these till the end, depending on how long everybody here on the hards can go. We're 12 laps in with some of the drivers. Let's just see how long they can go on them then. There's a fight down the main straight here then with Traps and Deckers, I believe, and the McLaren of Owen, and Deckers ahead of that McLaren as he currently holds P5. Does Deckers, of course, making that early pit stop, but still comes out behind some of the, comes out behind Traps now. Davey then currently in P3, of course, not made a pit stop just yet. He picks up his first penalty of the day, and now only two drivers without them is Peppies and Passy, sorry. Usually really consistent with no time penalties and things like that. Don't tend to get many throughout the course of a of a race. But St. Power now picks up another one. Speaking of time penalties, and they just keep building up, don't they? Building and building on top of each other. As Pepe through the first sector, currently marked as 4.1 seconds ahead of Dom Pedrito, on a roll, and it is looking like this Aston Martin is going to potentially take yet again another win here in Extinguished Motorsports and really help his championship chances this early on in a season. I think sits in about 4th in the World Championship, maybe 5th. But these points are going to help him massively because, someone like Passy, who leads the World Championship, he's down in P7 today, and that is going to be a huge drop in points. The sprint race wasn't good either, meaning that his points aren't going to be as large as they usually would be coming out of a race weekend, unfortunately. Well, as you can clearly see, with the low amount of drivers here, the action has very much died down. But we do have Owen on the backside of Deckers here, fighting for 5th place. And I believe time penalties, it's more on the end of Deckers. Here it is. He's got 6 to his name, has Deckers. Owen only with the 3. So a 3-second deficit there. And Owen will have the advantage over Deck at the moment on the 15th lap of 29. We are in that halfway point now of the race, the middle 2 halfway laps. Pretty much into the second half now. And St. Power at the back really struggling as well with the penalties. He is here with 12 seconds to his name, severely struggling with the penalties. This could be an overtake then. The Red Bull of Traps up the inside line of Davey. He now takes third, and a reminder to you that he's been in the pit lane, so of course he will have to go in again potentially later, because I don't think these mediums are going to hold out without risking a puncher. But Traps is now into the podium places ahead of Davey here, who is still yet to pit on the 15-lap Old Hards. He's in the same boat as Pepe's and Dom Pedrito, and I'm looking forward to see when they actually decide to come in. It's looking like it's going to be a one-stop strategy from them, given how long they are running these tyres now, and it's going to be the mediums till the end potentially, but just a question of when they actually are going to go into the pit lane. Only 13 laps remaining in the race. Already had 16, so over that half race distance now. And this is it. As soon as we talk about it, it's Pepe's and Dom Pedrito in the pit lane. Is Davey going to follow and do the same thing here? Then Traps is maybe going to make an overtake on these drivers as he makes his way round now. The Red Bull towards the final corner. Will he get through and past the pit lane and out ahead of the leading drivers before them? This is it then, the pit stops. Is it worked here for Traps after pitting quite a bit earlier? It does work for him. The Red Bull leads the Grand Prix here in Qatar, and on pit stops and strategy, he's got it nailed. Traps has. He leads by 4 seconds over Pepe's own with a 10-second time penalty now as he pits and retires from the session, leaving us with 9 drivers remaining on lap 17 of 29, and we lose one, unfortunately, but the only driver we've lost at the minute, which is normally quite rare, actually. St. Power with a 3-second penalty, and he really is struggling now. He's on about 15 seconds at the back of the grid and racking up those penalties quicker than ever. As everybody now making 1 stops, and potentially we're going to get some 2-stop strategies coming into play later on, but we're going to focus on what we've got at the moment, and Traps is your leader. However, he does have a 3-second time penalty, and of course Pepe's is behind him without a penalty. Passy now picks up his first one of the day. It is only Pepe's without a time penalty now, and this is going to really work in his favour if he still manages to maintain no penalties, you know, to the end of the race, which we've seen him do countless times before. But only 11 laps left, and the laps are ticking by quickly. Traps leads. It was Pepe's for a while, of course, but the strategy worked in the way of the Red Bull, and now he is the man out in front, but trying to maintain the gap of 3 seconds, which it looks like it's going to fall below very soon. It does now to 2.9. Pepe's clearly is the overall quicker driver, and both on the same tyres, just 4 laps older for Traps here on the mediums. It is mediums for all of the top 3 here. Then we go to Deckers on the 8-lap Old Hards, and he picks up a time penalty just as we speak of him. He's now got 9 to his name, and he's gonna really struggle with that now to get a good place. The top 3 that you're looking at is really looking like, you know, the finishing order for the top 3 at the minute because of the time penalties. And a position change here. Finally some action going on at the back, in the middle of the pack of the grid then. And it is Passy and P4 on Deckers now. And Passy with a great pass. The leader of the World Championship gets ahead of Deckers in 5. And now up into P4, but fighting back the Red Bull, not wanting to let it go. Looks up the inside for a move and not enough room to make it stick. So Passy now holds 4th place today. 3-second penalty for him. Deckers with 9. Nearly every driver here with a penalty, but Pepe's. He's the only one. And it's pretty impressive, isn't it, how 10 laps away from the end and still no penalty. Is he going to get one? You know, we'll find out. I'm not too sure if he's got a warning because I can't see it today, but he's got to have some warning, surely. In 19 laps, you have to. Going that wide, surely. Getting a warning from that. He's got Traps in front of him now, and this is the move we've been waiting for. Decker's now on 12 seconds of penalties, and actually the worst I've seen of him on penalties ever before. As here comes Pepe's on Traps then. This is for the race lead, everybody. Pepe's going for his P1 today. He won in this sprint. He took pole for the Grand Prix. Now fighting for the lead. Can he win this race today? This is the move then to make it work, and Pepe's does get ahead of Traps now as the Aston Martin leads again. 9 laps before the end. It is Pepe's one, but can this Red Bull try and fight him back? Traps today has really showed some strong pace, and he won in the previous round. Pepe's now, because of the action and the fighting, he's now level with everybody around him. He has a 3-second time penalty as well. Traps with 3, Pepe's with 3, and Dom Pedrito with the same. The top 3 now all on a level playing field as everybody picks up a time penalty. So it isn't going to matter too much if you have one anymore, because everybody has one, apart from Deckers, who's got 12. He's going to really, really struggle to come back from that. You know, your race is pretty much over at that point. 12 seconds is not ideal, but you got to give it to him. This track is a hard one to get right every lap around, especially if you're stuck in the mix and fighting somebody. It's easy to say if you've got clean air up in front and you're pulling away from the pack, but when you're fighting with people in the middle of the pack and you never quite know where you are after every turn, you're bound to go off the track now and then and cause yourself some penalties as Deckers leaves the session on track. And that is another driver out now of the race with only 8 laps left. And here comes Aston Martin. Pepe's fighting him back down in towards turn 1. He wants this move ahead of the Red Bull, but can he make it this time around? Up the inside line goes the Aston Martin. They are level through turns 1 and 2. Traps has the inside line through there, but the Aston Martin will have the inside through the right-hand side. And Pepe's once again is leading the Qatar Grand Prix, but how long for? We saw him do this the previous lap around. Traps found a gap and got back through. But I think this time it's looking more permanent. Contact made on the Aston Martin. The race leader gets sent nearly around. Traps sends him. Pepe's regains it, and Traps does let him back through, which is what we like to see. And of course, he will skip a penalty because of that from the stewards. Lets Pepe's back through, but in the process loses a place now to Dom Pedrito, who is in 2nd place. Traps now to the bottom of the podium. As Deckers said, he's just disconnected, unfortunately, with only 8 laps remaining. But a sensational race and a battle up at the front here as Dom Pedrito managed to slip through into 2nd and off the track there. Somebody's gone really off. Who was that in the background? It's going to be Traps. Something's gone on here. I think a disconnection with a wheel potentially. Traps into P3 and he went well off the side of the track now. He's just disqualified. The man that has led many laps in this race, he won the previous round, the Red Bull, is out. He is out of the Qatar Grand Prix and he'll retire in the pit lane now, but it is a disqualification for the Red Bull. Wow. What on earth happened to Traps then? That marks the end of his race tonight and leaves us with only, with Deckers out of it, there's only 7 people left now. We are really running thin on the ground. But I appreciate everyone being in the chat still tonight, even after everything. But now more than ever, it is looking like Don Pedrito's day. It really is. With a 9/10 of a second gap to Pepe's at the moment. straight up with another time penalty. And he adds 9, which normally 9 seconds seems like a lot, but in terms of today, it actually isn't as much as we've seen. Of course, Deck had a big penalty of 12, even bigger for St. Power of 18, and he's clearly really struggled. But only 6 laps left of the race now, everybody, and then we have your top 3 interviews. I'm not entirely sure if Dom Pedrito or Pepe's are going to want to speak or pass either, but we'll find out if any of them do. Hopefully we get a bit of a chat with some people, but all of them on 3-second penalties, like I mentioned. But as soon as one gets another 3 seconds, it is looking like game over for them. There's 6 more laps for them to persevere and hopefully not cross the white line more than 3 times to pick up another 3-second time penalty. That is their goal. Dom Pedrito ahead of Pepe's now, and now he gets a 3-second penalty just as we speak of it. So even though he is ahead of Pepe's currently is the race leader. That's not what he wants to be getting. It's Don in front, but with another time penalty, that's going to send him down a place. Passy, of course, is 16 seconds behind, so the gap is huge between the top few. How long can Dom Pedrito go for then on the 7-lap-old mediums as well as Pepe's? Are they going to run these till the end? It is really looking like it now with only a few laps left in the race, but those tyres are going to be screaming out for help come race end. And we might even see a puncture here if it goes that far. You never quite know. Could be puncture territory towards the end, but the drivers, we know what these are like. They're very, very skilled drivers, and it's potentially looking like they might just be able to nurse them through. We'll find out. Deck in the chat. Where do you normally place in CSRL? Are you normally pretty up there? Last. Well, St. Power's in the pit lane. Is he going to retire or is he going to go in for some new tyres? It's looking like new tyres. Is 11 laps old. Technical constructors and fourth in the championship. Not too bad, mate. It's decent. Taken straight up for a move on the Williams there, I believe, getting lapped, or unlapping himself actually. 2 races left. Good stuff, Deck. That is really, really good. Well, Percival and Deck has changed around. Of course, Decker's not here anymore after a disconnection, and Percival does get through. That is actually him driving, and he does get into P5. Deck's just been into the pit lane as an AI, went on for some new softs. But lap 25 of 29 begins. Through the first sector we go, and Pepe's your leader over Dom Pedrito. And Don, of course, with a 3-second time penalty extra. Percival now picks up a penalty as well. It is really looking in favour of Pepe's tonight. Despite having a time penalty, he has 3 seconds less than his competitor behind. And then the next competitor is 17.7 seconds behind that. And he's also got a penalty too. So Pepe's really in a good position here, and if he messes it up, he'll be kicking himself, because it is literally handing a race win to him, you know, on a silver platter. This is absolutely perfectly executed for the Aston Martin. Just has to bring it home for the final 4 laps now of the race.
How many days do you commentate now? We commentate Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the minute. 3 days a week, I believe. Sometimes Sundays as well, so 3 to 4 days a week at the minute. We've cut down slightly, but we're still out and about doing it. Not as many times on this Jack Crusty Comms channel anymore. It's normally on other people's channels. That's you know, maybe why sometimes you won't see the streams all the time. How's the other part of Crusty Comms going with the other Jack? Pretty good. The other Jack's not really doing it much anymore, but we have still got a few commentaries going on in the week. There's a Saturday one that still runs, Fridays as well, and now and then on the Tuesdays. So still some work to be done on it, but on the whole, it's looking pretty good, mate. We're still going along with it. But lap 27 of 29 then, and won't be long before the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix begins. Pepe's ahead and 7/10 of a second to Dom Pedrito. Like I mentioned, it's absolutely going the way of Pepe today, and also Dom Pedrito, never realised, picked up another time penalty. He's now on 9. A 6-second deficit, that's going to really, really mess him up. And isn't going to do too much to him and Passy behind, because Passy picks up another penalty. But you know, Dom Pedrito has got no chance at all of taking that win away from Pepe's here today, even if he is quite close on pace. The penalties completely screw him over here tonight. When my girlfriend asks where I'm racing, I describe this one as the one with a good commentary. I appreciate that. I am at my girlfriend's house tonight as well, so the commentary might not be as amazing as it. Well, I don't mean to sound on my own house, my bad. But it might not be as decent as it normally is, because I'm in a bit of a different environment. It doesn't always, you know, feel the exact same, but I'm still trying to do my best for you. And of course, doing my best for what we've been given today. The action hasn't been incredible. It started with great action, but of course died down towards the end. But only this lap and one more to go before the end. Then your post-race interviews as well. And then we wrap up the 4th round of the season here in Extinguished Motorsports. And time does fly in these seasons. I believe the 3rd season with Extinguished for me at the moment, I think. We've been with them for a long time now, all the way back to when I used to do, I think, Helheim Racing on the Sunday and Wednesdays. And that was the reason why I could never do Extinguished Motorsports, because I was always commentating Wednesday. But then we, of course, finished with that and took on Extinguished full time. But a move here for Dom Pedrito as he does get in front, but unfortunately isn't going to mean much at all here today in the Williams, as his time penalties is going to throw him under the bus massively. This is the final lap of the Grand Prix this evening then. And with 3 drivers retiring, we only have 7 remain in this 4th round of the season here in Qatar. The previous round then, ladies and gentlemen, in Japan was brilliant. A lot more drivers than this. Unfortunately today was just one of those days where, you know, the attendance isn't as good as it usually is. But hopefully next week it will be better, and I'm sure it will be. But even then today we've still had some class racing from one driver, and that is Pepe's in 2nd place at the moment, but effectively in the lead then after time penalties have been added up across the line. It's gone absolutely Pepe's way all the way through today. He's took pole in the 1st qualifying and the 2nd qualifying. He took the race win in the sprint as well. And now, to wrap it up for him today, he's going to make it 4 out of 4 this evening. Dom Pedrito taking every win that he can today. Now, sorry, Pepe's taking every win that he can today. Now, he is going to try and take that 4th as he crosses the line together with Dom Pedrito. Pepe's wins the Qatar Grand Prix. Dom Pedrito takes 2nd place. Passy across the line then. When he gets there, 25 seconds behind, he will take the final spot on the podium.
And now we have to see if we're going to get to speak to them or not. But an incredible drive from them. It is the podium of Pepe's, Dom Pedrito, and Passy. Well, that is it tonight then, everybody. That is it. Did Pepe just Grand Slam? I believe he did. I believe he did. He did incredibly well tonight. Not really any mistakes at all, was there? And pretty flawless all the way through. But it's Pepe's 1 then, Dom Pedrito 2, Passy 3, 4 Davey, 5 Percival, P6 Stray Dog. And now we're going to get into your interviews very, very shortly to round off this event this evening. Well, the race winner then, Pepe's fastest lap. Pepe's, he's the cleanest driver too. The driver of the day goes to Passy, as well as the most overtakes goes to him. What a race from Pepe's, Dom Pedrito and Passy then taking that podium while we wait to see if we can get them in the interview room. Now, bear with me for a moment as I try to get them in, hopefully. Pepe says he's coming soon, so we're definitely going to get to interview him. Just bear with us while we wait for him to get in here. Just got to get the Discord open and ready, and then we can get the interviews going and flowing.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, mate. You okay?
Yeah, quite tired.
I bet. Well, a long race this evening, but a very good result at the end of that. What's your thoughts on the whole event, mate?
I didn't expect the result. P1 in the first quali, then P1 in the second. Won the sprint, won the race. I cannot imagine anything better, really.
So coming into this, into Qatar, is it one of your strongest tracks? Were you expecting this kind of result, or has it just took you by surprise?
No, I was yesterday small practice with the Don Pedrito and Davey. Good luck, Davey. Nice result P4. And yeah, I was struggling with this track. I was getting problem with the fuel and
Yeah.
everything, but yeah, luckily this time I put like one lap extra for the fuel to be safe. And yeah, that was worth it, really.
Where would you say the worst section of the track was for picking up warnings and time penalties? Because there was a lot of that from all drivers today.
Yeah, for me, the sector, third sector, it was the worst. Honestly, there is the second before the end corner, the left one fast. Yeah, that's really easy to get the warning, but yeah, I was trying to manage it. My goal was to don't get so much penalties.
Yeah.
I was sure that is gonna be really help for the win. So yeah.
Well, of course, a good race from you today, and also from taking the win in the sprint and the race, it's going to be some good points to add to the standings. Um, obviously, I think you're going to gain a few places as well. Do you think early stages in the season, but do you think you fancy your chances at maybe P3 for the World Championship?
My goal is to keep the P1. So
Yes,
yeah, that's my goal. But I think I can manage to finish in the top three for sure.
definitely. Yeah.
I'm quite getting confident with the racing more and more. And yeah, racing in this league is just really crazy.
Yeah.
So nice buttons and everything. I don't know even what happened with the traps. If I get the contact with him later on, but yeah, luckily I managed to win this. But I was also lucky because Don Pedrito get the 9 seconds penalty.
Yeah.
If that didn't happen, then I will have big problems.
Well, you put the work in today, mate, and it has paid off very well. Winning all 4 of the sessions that we've had today. 2 poles, 2 wins, good result. So thank you very much for your
Yeah,
time, mate, and hopefully you can have a another good weekend next week.
yeah, for sure. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
You too. Thank you. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, that is it from me. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. It's been a great evening of racing. Have a good evening and good night.